Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
Earlier today, I'm mad at myself. I'm really mad at myself. I deleted it, but I got a LinkedIn request from somebody, and the LinkedIn request went something along these lines. And that's, again, I'm mad I deleted it because I just thought about it and preparing for this conversation. But it said, "Hey, would you be willing to give me 10 minutes of your time to, basically talk about my offering, and if it resonates? And in exchange for that, I'll give you a free 30-minute consultation." And the reason I deleted it is because that's just dripping with sales. It's just, you're just setting yourself up. I know exactly where that's going. I've seen that movie. I don't like the ending. And it's just, I would be getting on a call with them, and they would be picking my brain and getting information, and then essentially using that information to turn around and pitch me. That's a 30-second free consultation is. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this person's genuine, but I've done a lot of those, and I've just burned a lot of time. And they're just great ways to network, and then there are ways not to. And that's a lead into today's guest, Julie Jones. And this is going to be an interesting conversation. She's got quite a background. She's an etiquette expert, and she's a sought-after public speaker. And she's got a company called Today's Professional Consulting and Development, and she specializes in executive leadership, interpersonal skills. And she has a client base that includes American Airlines, Southwestern, SMU, Southern Methodist University, Texas Tech, Tulane, banks, law firms, accounting firms. And she has a background in education as well. She taught in the classroom and was a private school administrator. So she's kind of run the gamut. But in leaving that, she started a plumbing company, and it took off. It took off in that first year of a plumbing company. They generated $350,000 first year. That's really unheard of. And they did it through networking. And Julie, welcome. I think this is going to be a great conversation, because we hear all these stories out there, these anecdotes of, people making up how these things can work. And you're living proof that it works. You're not somebody who had 30 years in a plumbing industry. You just said, you know what, we're going to do this plumbing business. Well, I'll shut up and let you talk. How's that?
Well, thank you. This is great. You and I said this before, we're kindred spirits. I mean, it's like we're cut from the same cloth. And so, yes, networking works. But you have to learn how to network. And, when we started our plumbing company, my husband was he'd been in the plumbing industry for 40 years, started off in residential service, moved to commercial construction, worked his way up to director of operations, and then quit his job one day and said, "Hey, we're going to start this residential service plumbing company." I had just quit my job as a teacher to start this etiquette business, and I had all these visions in my head. And then all of a sudden, neither one of us had a job. And so we had to find a way to pay the bills. And so the quickest and easiest way to pay the bills was through the plumbing company, because everybody wants to know a good plumber. And so we started thinking that we could just advertise, right? That's what we're going to advertise. The phones are going to ring. And guess what? Digital advertising in the Dallas-Fort Worth area where we live in plumbing is really expensive. It's very competitive. And so we realized quickly that, we had to do something different. And so we both are great with people. He knew a lot of people. I knew a lot of people. And so we got out and started networking. And in the beginning, we were just going to whatever networking events we could find during the day. And then, we were networking 4 nights a week sometimes. And, we got caught in what I call the hamster wheel of networking. So you're going to all these events, you're meeting new people, and people are coming up to you and saying, "Oh my gosh, I love what you do. Let's meet for a one-to-one. I want to know more," especially in my business with the etiquette. Everyone wants to meet with me, but nobody really wants to pay me to
Yeah.
do what I do. They want me to give it to them for free. In the plumbing space, they just wanted to sell us something, you know?
Yeah.
And so we found out really quick that we were exhausting ourselves. We were spending money on networking fees, gas, coffees, lunches, happy hours, and then we were doing the one-to-ones, and we had to figure out how to make networking work for us. And so we really drilled down on how to fine-tune this so that we could make a living doing this. And I will say that when you're networking, sometimes, like if you're a plumber, you can go to a networking event and walk out with calls, because everybody has plumbing issues and everybody wants to know a plumber that they trust. Nobody wants
Yeah.
to go to Google and pick a plumbing company. So if you have one in your phone, that's great. And so we found that with the plumbing company, we could really drive business to our business. But in my business space, working with corporations, schools, executives, the sales cycle is a little bit longer. And so, we just had to figure out how to do it. In the plumbing space, our very first year, we tracked it. When we really got good at it, we drove $350,000 to our revenue that year simply through networking. And that didn't include the people that we knew and other types of referrals that we got,
Right.
but networking. And so it does work if you do it right. And to go back to the way that you opened and you got the message, hey, will you listen to my 10-minute pitch? And then if so, I'll provide value to you. That is backwards. That is backwards. You don't go to a banker and say, "Hey, I'm going to open an account with you, but first I need you just to give me some money. And then in exchange for you giving me some money, I'll put a little bit back in."
Yeah.
That's not the way it works. You put money in, you make deposits first, you provide value first, and then you can make withdrawals. And that's the secret to networking.
Yeah. You had talked about when getting caught in what I think you used the word trap, people
Bait and
are,
switch.
yeah, bait and switch. I look at networking often as kind of like advertising, and there's the adage in advertising that in advertising, 50% of your dollars are wasted. You just don't know what 50%. And it's kind of the same way with networking is there are people out there who will bait and switch you, and then there are good people. And how did you guys end up sorting that out, or you just kind of go through and take your lumps?
Yeah, it's trial and error, right?
Yeah.
We were just going wherever we could. And in the plumbing space, it felt like people would come right up to us. But to be honest with you, we had to provide value too, because there would be people who would come up to us and say, "Oh my gosh, my faucet's dripping," or, "My toilet is leaking. Do I have to call a plumber, or can you tell me how to fix it?" And so we would literally tell people how to fix that, because to be honest with you, there are some fixes that we would rather teach you how to do rather than for us to send a licensed plumber out to you and charge a licensed plumber's fees. And you go, "For that?"
Yeah.
Because people view it as, I could go to Home Depot and buy that part for $5, but you're not paying me for that part. You're paying me for the knowledge that I have to come and fix this quickly and get it off your plate. You're not paying me for the part. But sometimes people get confused and think, I want to pay a Home Depot part price.
Right.
And that is, well, if you want to do that, then you need to know how to fix it yourself. And that's what drove us actually to start putting out videos on how to do simple, quick fixes yourself, and then call us when you have a big problem. So that's how all of that happened. But we learned that through networking, where people would come to us and say, I've got this problem. What do you think? And we would literally provide value right there at the networking events.
Yeah, I remember somebody in my networking journeys who was a fitness consultant, and somebody asked him a question about, hey, what do you think I should be doing? And he was offended by that. He was offended by, I'm not going to give you free information. And I kind of saw where he was coming from, but in reality, it was like, all right, you're not giving away so much, right? You're giving away just little things, like you're saying, right? You're not, hey, this is how you, this is how you plumb a whole house.
Right.
Yeah. This is
right.
This is how you fix the flapper in the back of your toilet. It's not a big deal.
Right. Right. Yeah. And, with the plumbing company too, with the service, you get a warranty. If you go pay the Home Depot part price, and fix it yourself, or pay a neighbor or your cousin to come over and fix it, it's not warranted. So if that leaks and causes further damage, you're out that money too, rather than just, having the plumbing company come out, and if there's a mistake, then they pay for it. I had this, the same thing though, too, with my business, my etiquette business. I mean, people that I networked with, right, in my groups.
Mm-hmm.
A lady came up to me and said, I love what you do. And I've got a daughter that's going to be graduating from college soon. And I'd love to talk to you about perhaps working with her. Can we meet for coffee? And this was back before I knew that we could do Zoom calls. This was before the pandemic, which, by the way, I started doing virtual one-to-ones before the pandemic, because I realized that, in certain cities, you're driving 30 minutes to a one-to-one. So that's, an hour of your time plus the one-to-one time. So you're looking at some pretty precious time. So I started doing the virtual one-to-ones before the pandemic, but at this particular one, I went to meet for coffee. And when I arrived for coffee to talk to her about the possibility of working with her daughter was with her. And she said, oh, I'm so glad you're here. This is Julie. Julie, this is my daughter. And then she literally says, okay, tell her what she needs to do. And she sat back, like, tell her what she needs to do to get a job.
Yeah, that's rude.
And it was... okay. And the daughter, by the way, was humiliated and said, Mom, this is embarrassing. And she goes, no, this is what she does. She knew what she was doing. And so you have to watch for those people that do want to take advantage, the people that are asking for you to give more than just a simple value. I mean, I certainly don't mind telling her, hey, do you have, what are you wearing? Have you thought about this? How are you applying? I don't mind going through some simple steps and providing the value up front. And then let me know if you want me to coach you on some, strategies. But I felt like that was a bait and switch, because that's not the purpose. That's not how she got me to come to the coffee.
Right.
She said, I want to talk to you about working with my daughter. And so that, those kinds of things are very hurtful. But at the end of the day, we're dealing with humans. And this is why I really want to work with, especially our young people, our future leaders, on, we're all different. We all come to the table with different backgrounds and experiences and belief systems. And so there will be times when you're dealing with humans where there's going to be misunderstandings, miscommunications. There's going to be times where you're going to get your feelings hurt, or you're going to hurt somebody else's feelings, totally unintentional. But it's not about that you make mistakes. It's how you handle it. And so teaching people how to handle these things that happen with humans, I think is really important, that we, that we teach people that not everybody is evil. Not, some people they just don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. I run into that a lot. People who just I don't want to use the term ignorant, but they've
Well,
gotten their lessons from, I'm not sure where.
yeah. I mean, and from where you're raised, right?
Yeah.
From where you're raised. And it could be a difference of the area that you were raised in. I will never forget learning. My students taught me so much. I was in education for 15 years, and I taught in a rural area. I wasn't in Dallas Fort Worth, and there was a naval base there, and had a new family move in. And in the South, we teach people to say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, or thank you. It's a sign of respect, not disrespect. But depending on where you're from, it can be taken as a sign of disrespect. So we have cultural differences, not only from the United States and different countries, but within our own country.
Right.
Depending where you are from, there's different cultural little innuendos that you have to learn. And so the teachers in my building all would teach the students to say, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. So one time, and this new family came in, and this child and this family, they were just outstanding. This child was smart, well-spoken, just a complete and total package of somebody who's going to, just oozes with potential success, right? He's got the world by the tail. And he was Black. And so when I would always say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And he'd kind of look at me, and he came up to me after class one day and he said, "Can I talk to you?" I said, "Absolutely." And he said, "Why do you tell me that to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am? Why is that?" And so I said, "Well, in the South, this is a sign of respect." And so he said, "Well, my parents tell me not to say that." And I said, "Oh, okay." And he said, "They tell me to say yes or no, not yeah." And he made it clear, I can't say yeah, or, I can't be rude, but I can say yes or no. And I said, "I've noticed that you do that. And you're not rude about it." And he said, "Where I come from in Chicago, we don't say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am." He said, "As a matter of fact, me being Black, saying that especially to a white person, it could be demeaning." And I said, "Well, I've never thought of that. That I didn't intend for it to mean that way, because this is just
Right.
in the South, it's just the way we are, it's just
Well,
who
Chicago's a whole nother culture.
it's a whole nother culture. And then couple into it, there's a racial difference here, right? Something
Yep.
that means something completely different to him that I don't understand, right? Because
Yep.
I'm not Black. And so I said, "I am so glad that you came and talked to me about this. I'm going to go, and that we have meetings, all the time. I'm going to tell the other teachers about this conversation, so that we will stop telling you that, and that we will be more aware of that. And I think it's something that we need to have a discussion about within ourselves." And he said, "Well, I really appreciate it." And he was very grateful. I said, "Thank you for listening to me." And I said, "No, thank you for bringing this perspective to me, because I didn't know."
Right.
Now, let's think about this. This kid was in middle school. Can you just imagine the maturity that this middle school student had to come and approach me, who's a white teacher, and bring this up and do it in a respectful manner where we could have a nice conversation and I could understand his point of view? His parents didn't come up screaming and yelling, calling me names or anything like that. It was just simply a conversation about, we came to the table with different perspectives, with different backgrounds, different belief systems. And all it took was a simple conversation, and it was done.
Yeah.
And I will never forget that student and how much I admired him, and what a powerful lesson that was for me.
Any idea what happened to him? I mean, you had glowing things to say about him. I guess junior high, you don't necessarily follow them through high school. And if he was
Right.
a Navy brat, if you will,
Yeah,
he may have moved on. So
he did. He did. The military moves around a lot,
yeah.
depending on the parents and all of that. He did move on, but I did get to know his parents, and I just had the utmost respect for the entire family. Just love him to death. And I don't know where he is, but I wish I did.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. Let's shift gears here. You also have a podcast or a live. It's How You'll Be Remembered. You want to touch on that real quick? And go ahead.
Yeah, going live. And so when I first started my business, it was simply business etiquette. And so my tagline was, it's not just etiquette, it's how you'll be remembered. And so now I've expanded a little bit into some other skill sets, but I love the idea of it's how you'll be remembered. It's all about your attitude, your image, the way you manage yourself. It really is the impact that you have on someone else and somebody, how they see you. And are you approachable? Are you someone that people can trust? So I have guests on there every week. It's every Tuesday on LinkedIn and on my Today's Professionals Facebook page. We go live. And it's just discussing things that make you better, that your mindset, your image, your attitude, just anything that makes you better, so that you can elevate your influence, so you can inspire others and have a greater impact on your community.
The other thing I want to touch on, we mentioned we were talking before we hit record. You have a networking program.
Yeah.
Do tell.
Well, thank you. I have an online course for networking, because as you and I've talked about so many times, when you start networking, and especially for young professionals, at some point they're going to come in and somebody's going to say, go out and network and bring in your own book of business. And they're going to take the company credit card and they're going to start networking, and they're going to end up doing what I did.
Right.
And they're going to be spinning their wheels, not working on their business, working on networking, and it's not fruitful. So I came up with a system and process for people to design a networking program that works for them, so that they too can drive revenue to your business. Because the ultimate reason that we network is to grow our businesses. And so there's a method and a madness to it. And so how do you do that and be productive? That's what I want. So I do have an online networking course. And people can reach out to me at todaysprofessionals.com and fill out my contact form and say, I'm interested in your online course, and I can get that information to them.
I will certainly put that in the show notes.
I
sense you have a book in you. I don't want, am I
I
right?
do.
All right. We won't get too much. I want to get you back on for that, but whatever you want to say,
Yeah. So everything that I do revolves around, you have the power to change your life. You cannot control others. You cannot control how they respond to you, but you can control yourself. And so everyone wants to be around someone who has a great attitude, who has a great image. And that's not just the way you look, but it's the way you show up and the way you manage yourself. And so I have a book around that will be coming out at the end of this year. And I'm excited about that. And yes, I'd love to come back on and talk about it.
We will. Yeah, we definitely will. Thank you for coming on today. This was fun.
Well, thank you, Frank. I appreciate what you do. You're doing great work. Keep it up.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today, and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.